My name is Madison. I am 23 years old. That night at my uncle's house changed everything. My mom made me the joke of the entire family. I felt small, humiliated, and trapped. Everyone laughed. She smiled. I wanted to disappear. I never expected what would happen next. The day started normal. The sun was setting. The house smelled like baked ham and cookies. The cousins were running around. Adults chatted. I had spent hours getting ready. My hair straightened, dress ironed, shoes polished. I looked calm on the outside, but my stomach twisted. I knew my mother could ruin this evening with one comment. She loved attention. She loved control. She loved embarrassing me. Dinner was almost over when she stood. She clinked her glass. The room fell silent. I felt my heart race. She smiled and looked at everyone. I have a story about Madison, she said. I froze. I could feel every eye on me. My cheeks burned. My hands trembled. I wanted to run. She began telling a story about when I was 10. A simple mistake in the kitchen turned into a performance. She exaggerated every detail. She laughed loudly. Everyone joined in. I tried to smile. My teeth clenched. I said nothing. I couldn't. My face turned red. My ears rang. My mother's power over me was on full display. I remembered past family events. Similar moments. My mom always turned me into the center of jokes. Always made me look weak. Always controlled the narrative. I hated it. I hated her. But I stayed calm. I listened. I memorized every word. Every laugh. Every glance. Every moment of humiliation. When she finished, the room clapped. People praised her humor. I nodded politely. Inside, I was burning with rage. But I didn't let them see it. I had learned long ago to hide my feelings. Crying would give her joy. Anger would give her power. I decided to do nothing. At least for now. After the event, I went outside. The air was cold. I took deep breaths. I thought about how she had always controlled me. I thought about all the times I had been embarrassed. All the times I was ignored, dismissed, or mocked. I realized I had had enough. That night, I promised myself that one day, I would show her exactly what it felt like to be powerless in front of everyone she wanted to impress. In the following weeks, I started observing her closely. I noticed her weaknesses. She craved attention. She lied subtly. She manipulated people's opinions of me. I recorded everything in my mind. Every story she told. Every exaggeration. Every insult. I planned quietly. Carefully. I also focused on myself. I excelled at work. I improved my skills. I saved money. I built a life independent of her. Every success, every step forward was a quiet rebellion. I didn't seek her approval anymore. I didn't need it. Months later, another family gathering arrived. My mother, as usual, tried to dominate the event. She told stories, laughed at my expense. But this time I was ready. When she mentioned one of my old mistakes, I smiled calmly. Yes, Mom, I remember. That taught me a lot. The room went silent. I had taken control. I wasn't defensive or angry. I wasn't a victim. I was composed, confident, and respected. My mother's smile faltered. The power had shifted. People noticed. They were confused. Some impressed. Some shocked. My mother could no longer humiliate me without consequence. I realized then that revenge didn't have to be loud or cruel. It could be quiet, clever, and unstoppable. My mother had underestimated me for years. She assumed I would always shrink. But I had grown. I had learned patience. I had learned observation. I had learned strategy. From that moment, my life became deliberate. Every interaction with her was calculated. Every gathering, every story, every comment was a chance to regain control. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to cry. I only needed to be calm, composed, and undeniable. My mom continued her attempts, but they failed. She tried again at another dinner, telling exaggerated stories. I smiled. I nodded. I acknowledged the stories without embarrassment. My calmness made the room shift. People began to see her differently. I could see it in their eyes. Respect, admiration, recognition that I was no longer under her power. That night, I lay in bed thinking about the years of humiliation. I realized I had been planning revenge for years without even realizing it. Every quiet moment, every success, every smile I had carefully built was a step toward this moment of quiet victory. I had survived her cruelty. I had taken my power back. The fire in me wasn't about hurting her. It was about reclaiming my life. I had learned the rules of the game. She had thought she could control the story forever. But now, I could write my own story. The girl she mocked was no longer afraid. The girl she humiliated was no longer weak. She had no control. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to fight. I only needed patience and precision. And that was enough to make her powerless in front of everyone who had ever laughed at me. I had turned humiliation into strength, embarrassment into courage, and cruelty into a lesson she would never forget. That night, as I closed my eyes, I felt something I had never felt before.
Calm.
Confidence. Freedom. The knowledge that no matter what she tried, she could never touch my life again. And from that moment on, I knew my revenge wouldn't be a single event. It would be a life built on power, dignity, and unshakable self-respect. After that gathering, something shifted between my mother and me. She felt it. I felt it too. The control she once held so easily was slipping, and it made her uncomfortable. She started calling me more often, asking questions that sounded caring on the surface, but felt sharp underneath. "Why are you acting different?" she asked once. "I'm not," I replied calmly. "I'm just growing up." She didn't like that answer. Growing up meant she couldn't predict me anymore. It meant I no longer reacted the way she expected. And that scared her. At the next family dinner, she tried again. This time, she waited until everyone was relaxed. Plates were cleared. Drinks were poured. Laughter filled the room. Then she leaned forward and said, "Madison was always so sensitive. Even as a child, she couldn't take a joke." Her eyes flicked toward me. She was testing me. I didn't flinch. I didn't look down. I smiled slightly and said, "I wasn't sensitive. I just didn't enjoy being humiliated." The room went quiet. Someone coughed. Someone shifted in their seat. My mother blinked, surprised. She laughed nervously, trying to recover. "Oh, come on. It was just harmless fun." I nodded. "It may have been fun for you. It wasn't for me."
No anger.
No raised voice. Just truth. That was when I noticed something important. People were watching her now. Not laughing automatically. Not following her lead. They were listening to me. After dinner, my aunt pulled me aside. "You've changed," she said softly. "In a good way." I smiled. That small sentence meant more to me than she could ever know. My mother, however, was furious. She cornered me in the kitchen. Her voice dropped. "You embarrassed me back there." I looked at her calmly. "You've been embarrassing me for years." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me. In a way, she didn't. The version of me she controlled no longer existed. From that day on, she started playing the victim. She told relatives I was cold, ungrateful, distant. She said I had changed because of work, because of friends, because I thought I was better than everyone else. But her words didn't land the same anymore. I had learned something powerful. When you stop reacting emotionally, manipulators lose their grip. I focused on my life. My job grew more demanding, but I loved it. I earned respect there. Real respect, not the fake kind that comes with fear. I started saving money, planning my future, building something solid. My mother hated that I no longer needed her. Then came the big family reunion, the one she had been talking about for months. Relatives from all over the country were coming. She saw it as her stage, her chance to shine. I saw it as something else. That evening, the house was full. Laughter echoed through every room. My mother was in her element, telling stories, commanding attention. I stayed calm, quiet, observant. At one point, someone asked about my job. Before I could answer, my mother jumped in. Oh, Madison's work keeps her busy, but she's always been a bit disorganized. I smiled and looked directly at her. Actually, I was promoted last month. I lead a team now. The reaction was instant. People congratulated me, asked questions, listened. My mother's face stiffened. She forced a smile, but I could see it. The jealousy, the loss of control. Later, she tried again. She brought up an old mistake from my teenage years, something private, something she knew would embarrass me. I didn't let her finish. I'd rather not turn family time into a joke at someone else's expense, I said calmly. We're all adults here. That was it. The room fell completely silent. No one laughed. No one defended her. Everyone looked at her. She opened her mouth, closed it, then laughed awkwardly and changed the subject. For the first time in my life, she was the one who looked small. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel triumph. I felt peace. Later that night, she confronted me again. You're turning everyone against me, she said, her voice shaking. I shook my head. I'm just telling the truth. She stared at me, and in that moment, I saw fear in her eyes. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing control. Fear of being seen. I realized then that my revenge was already happening. Not through shouting. Not through humiliation. But through dignity. Through truth. Through refusing to play her game anymore. She had built her power on my silence. And I had taken that away. From that point on, every gathering changed. She spoke less, watched more, hesitated before making jokes. People no longer laughed automatically. They questioned. They noticed. And I noticed something else too. I was free. Free from the need to explain myself. Free from the fear of her approval. Free from the role she had forced on me for years. My mother had made me a joke at a family event. What she didn't expect was that I would stop laughing along. And once I did, everything began to fall apart for her, quietly, steadily, and in front of everyone she cared about. After that family reunion, things between my mother and me shifted completely. She tried to regain control, but it was impossible now. She sent me long texts full of excuses, guilt, and manipulation. I didn't mean to hurt you, she wrote. You're overreacting. Family jokes are harmless. I read them carefully, then deleted them. No response. I didn't owe her anything anymore. At work, I noticed a change in myself. I spoke up more. I took credit for my ideas. I no longer worried about what anyone thought, not even her. Each promotion, each recognition, each small success became a statement. I was not her victim, and I would never be controlled again. Family gatherings continued, and each time, my mother tried to dominate. She attempted jokes, snide remarks, subtle digs, but they no longer landed. I responded calmly, firmly, with a hint of confidence that no one had seen before. Relatives began noticing. They asked me about my achievements. They watched how composed I had become. They whispered, and I could sense admiration. My mother looked smaller, unsteady. Her weapon, humiliation, had lost its edge. One evening, during another large family dinner, she tried to embarrass me again. This time, she started recounting a story from my childhood where I supposedly embarrassed myself at school. She exaggerated, smirked, expecting laughter. I looked at her and said softly but clearly, Mom, I learned from that experience, and I grew stronger because of it. The room went silent.
No laughter.
Some people nodded. My mother's jaw tightened. I could see her trying to mask frustration, but it was too late. She had no control over the narrative now. Over the following months, I realized the power of silence and composure. Every time she tried to provoke me, I remained calm. Every attempt she made to control family perception failed. Slowly, people began noticing her manipulations and inconsistencies. I saw whispers in corners, quiet conversations, questions asked politely but firmly. The house of influence she had built around her was crumbling, not because I attacked her, but because I refused to give her power. One afternoon, my aunt called me. Madison, your mom came over crying today. She said you've changed everything. She can't manipulate anyone anymore. I smiled faintly. The victory wasn't loud, but it was absolute. She had underestimated me for years. She assumed my quiet, obedient demeanor meant weakness. But patience and subtlety had become my strength. Then came the turning point. My mother decided to bring up old family secrets at another reunion. She expected chaos, drama, and embarrassment for me. I sat at the table, confident, observing. As she began speaking, I calmly interjected, "Mom, the truth doesn't need exaggeration. Everyone deserves honesty, not mockery." The room went quiet again. This time, she froze. She hadn't anticipated confrontation with dignity. She looked around, noticing the silent support in people's faces. That night, after everyone left, she tried one last time. She confronted me in the kitchen, voice trembling. "Why won't you respect me anymore? I've raised you." I looked her straight in the eye. "You didn't raise me. You controlled me. But control doesn't equal love, and fear doesn't equal respect."
For the first time, she didn't argue. She didn't laugh.
She just looked at me with a mixture of anger, disbelief, and fear. I could see the realization dawn on her face. I was no longer under her shadow. I had grown into myself. I had reclaimed my life. Months passed. Family events came and went. Each time she tried, and each time she failed. My calmness, confidence, and composure became a shield she couldn't penetrate. People listened to me, respected me, and saw me for who I truly was, not the version she had tried to force on everyone. I realized revenge doesn't always need anger. It doesn't need public shame. Sometimes it's simply living fully, unapologetically, and showing strength quietly while the other person loses control. That was my revenge. Every achievement, every moment of dignity, every act of independence became a quiet victory. Then one day she called me. A long, trembling voicemail. "Madison,
I don't know what happened.
you're not the girl I knew. I can't control you."
I'm sorry.
I listened and deleted it without a word. I didn't need her approval. I didn't need her apologies. I had taken my power back. I thought about the little girl I used to be, the one hiding under tables, wishing for escape, wishing for love. She had survived humiliation. She had survived neglect. But I had grown into a woman who thrived. I was free from fear, free from manipulation, free from my mother's games. And that freedom was sweeter than any revenge I could have imagined. After months of subtly reclaiming my life, I finally understood the full power of my own growth. My mother's attempts to control or embarrass me had become predictable, and I no longer reacted. She would try jokes, comments, or exaggerated stories, but I remained calm, composed, and unwavering. Her power had evaporated. Family gatherings no longer scared me. I walked into rooms with confidence, fully aware that her words no longer had the ability to hurt me. I smiled politely at her attempts to provoke, listened quietly, and responded only when necessary. Each subtle correction, each display of composure, chipped away at the image she had built for herself over decades. People noticed. Relatives whispered. I saw the recognition in their eyes. Madison was no longer the girl who shrank at every joke. Madison was strong, independent, untouchable by manipulation. At work and in my personal life, I focused on building success and stability. I nurtured friendships that respected me and supported my growth. I pursued hobbies that brought joy and fulfillment. Every achievement became a quiet message to my mother. I had thrived without her guidance, without her validation, and without her approval. My independence became the ultimate form of revenge, not cruelty, not public shaming, but a life fully lived on my own terms. One evening, my mother tried one last desperate attempt. She appeared at my apartment unannounced, clutching a stack of letters and photographs. Her eyes were red, and her voice trembled. "Madison, please. I just want to explain," she said, as if explanation could undo years of damage. I took a deep breath. I looked at her calmly. "Mom, there's nothing to explain. Your actions spoke for themselves." I've moved on. She faltered, as if she expected tears or pleading. There were none. She opened her mouth to argue, but found no words that could regain control. I was free from her influence, and she realized it. Weeks passed. She stopped attending family events as frequently. When she did, she kept her distance, no longer attempting to dominate the room. I had gained the respect and admiration of relatives who had once laughed at me. I had turned humiliation into dignity, cruelty into evidence of my own strength. My life was no longer dictated by her whims. I reflected on the journey. From the little girl hiding under tables, terrified of being the center of attention, to the woman who walked confidently into rooms where she had once been mocked, I had grown in ways she could never take from me. My revenge had never needed to be cruel. It had only required patience, clarity, and unwavering self-respect. Eventually, I realized that the ultimate victory was peace. The ultimate revenge was living fully, unapologetically, and without fear. I had reclaimed every corner of my life she once sought to control. I was no longer defined by her actions, her jokes, or her power.
I was defined by myself.
Sometimes I think back to the exact moment she first humiliated me at that family event. I remember the sharp sting, the laughter, the burning embarrassment. But I also remember the seed it planted, the realization that I could take control. That moment became the catalyst for every step I took to build my own life. Now, I walk into every room with confidence, every challenge with strength, and every relationship with clarity. My mother may have tried to make me a joke, but she failed completely. She underestimated the resilience, intelligence, and patience of the girl she thought she controlled. And that is the ending she never saw coming. I am Madison. I survived. I grew.
I thrived.
And my life is mine, untouchable and fully my own.